Happy Tuesday. What's going on, guys? It's Ricky with TechBud Solutions. Today, we have some interesting news that is moving the market today. One of the main reasons that the market saw such a significant retracement right at the open was the news that we received where Nvidia began selling off, and at one point it was down over 7%, hitting lows of 169.55. It has since then recovered, testing the moving average right now as a slight resistance. If it breaks support, we'll most likely see another leg down. But the big news, just to make it very simple, is the story of the day. Alphabet, known as Google, is up another 4% and Nvidia is down 4%, and concerns over increased competition. This comes after the report that Meta is considering using Google's AI chips over Nvidia chips. That is the story of the day. This is just increased competition, right? Nvidia has been on a slow downturn. On the 4-hour time frame, you can see from highs of $212 per share to current lows of $170. Nvidia in the past 18 days has lost over $1 trillion in market cap. Today alone, it's lost about $300 billion in market cap value. Now, again, if you're someone that's incredibly bullish in Nvidia, maybe this is a dip buy opportunity that you might want to consider buying into. But when you kind of zoom out, and this is coming from someone that's invested in Nvidia, again, can more downturn present itself? If more things remain uncertain, especially with our rising inflation rate, with the weakening job market, can Nvidia continue to retrace if things become more uncertain? Now, vice versa. Google, on the other hand, for the past 2 to 3 months, has been on a complete upswing. Google is one of the best performing stocks, in my opinion, especially in the later half of 2025. That's not a bullshit stock that's overhyped up like Oklo or NBIS or any of those wannabe companies, right? Google is actually performing very well. It went from lows of $150 per share to overall highs of $332. It's nearly at a $4 trillion market cap. Now, again, it doesn't mean that this momentum has to continue. I do think that it's ran up so aggressively in such a short period of time, it has become somewhat overbought just on the technical aspect. But why is it running? Because, again, it is now competing with Nvidia, where Nvidia is known to be the most dominant. And if you've been invested in Google, you could see that ever since, do you guys remember when that whole DeepSeek thing came out and people began to panic sell Google and they're like, oh, this is the end of Google? That's when we decided to buy Google and invest in it when it was trading at lows of 150 to 155 per share. Since then, it has experienced a 110% upswing. Again, you can't predict the future. In no way did I ever think that this thing was going to upswing 110%. If I knew that, I would have gone in with every penny to my name and invested in Google. But Google was trading at a very low PE ratio. It was a very cash-rich company that unfortunately sold off due to a negative catalyst that, in my opinion, was an overreaction. And that's why I decided to buy it, because I found it to be a good deal. I would never buy Google at $320 per share as of right now, because I would see there to be some retracement potential. It's no longer a good deal as it once was. Now, again, this doesn't mean that you can't buy it or that you can't think it's a good deal. We're all entitled to our own opinion. I just want you to be aware of where I stand. This is coming from someone that's invested in both Google and Nvidia, is that if overall markets begin to downturn, both companies will be negatively impacted. And that's the big question. Looking at NASDAQ and looking at this critical range that it's at a point where it can try to recover and go back to previous all-time highs for NASDAQ's QQQ, or forms another leg down and continues to sell off. I don't know about you, but it seems like markets have been a little bit more shaky lately. They're still holding pretty well. It looks like now markets are trying to recover, but it hasn't really surprised me that markets are trying to do anything and everything to try to hold and sustain these elevated levels, right? If you guys did not see, well, very quickly, I just want to show you the kind of like almost inverse of one another. This is Alphabet, which is Google's mother company, in the way that it was trading today. And then this is Nvidia, literally almost the opposite of everything that Alphabet was doing, Google was doing. But as you can see within the 1 minute time frame, now it looks very different. Google intraday since the market has opened. And that's the big thing, right? It gapped up overnight based off of the news. But since the market has opened, Google has actually been selling off lower highs and lower lows. It's nearly break even on the day. Nvidia actually is the one that has bottomed and is now beginning to recover. This is important to know. It's important to understand the headline as it captures a lot of people's attention, but then it's good to read into the news. This is simply saying that now Nvidia has some competition, but Nvidia still owns a majority of the marketplace. Doesn't mean that it's going to continue to, it just means that it still does. With that being said, is this an overreaction? And if you think it is, then maybe it's something that you want to buy into. But again, just when in doubt, zoom out and understand the bigger picture. I know when you look at the bigger picture, that encourages some people to buy the dip, and it might discourage other people to buy the dip because they could see that if things are uncertain with our overall markets, then Nvidia is more likely to experience a potential downturn. One of the fun stocks that I traded today was MSTZ. This is the inverse ETF of MSTR. I noticed that Bitcoin was selling off during extended hours yesterday, and you can't short during extended hours, at least not on Webull. So what I ended up doing was I bought the inverse ETF of MSTZ. I would not recommend this for beginners, and this is not an investment vehicle. This was just a quick little trade, and I ended up selling right before the market opened during the pre-market session, and I made $3,500 on that trade. On Oak Globe, unfortunately, I took a bad trade on this one, and I went to go actually buy the dip. The dip kept dipping. But again, I want to show you guys both sides to every trade it is that I take. Oak Glow is a little bit more on the oversold side on the day, but it's incredibly bearish like most of the market, right? Oak Glow is selling off. We have a lot of these like BS stocks that are consistently selling off right now. QBTS, that one's selling off. HIMS is selling off. All these like gimmicky companies are all selling off right now. Irene is down 6%. So just be very careful as markets begin to consolidate. I think one of the worst things that you can do, especially going into, this holiday, I don't want to call it a weekend, but Thursday, the stock market is closed, and then Friday, it's a half day in observance to Thanksgiving. So please make sure that if you are uncertain about market direction, if you're still uncertain if markets are going to begin to recover or continue to sell off, don't be afraid to take trades if they meet your criteria. Just maybe size down. Definitely do not use leverage, and be mindful of your position size. So if things do begin to go south, again, we're all human. We all make mistakes. It's so much easier to manage when the position is not super large and super aggressive. So again, we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. I trade live with my team every single morning. If you ever want to tune on in, it's designed for complete beginners, and it's a one-time payment for lifetime access. So every single morning, right at market open, we go live. You watch my screen, we trade live together, and if anything forms, you get to see every entry and every exit that I take within that live session. If this is something that you want to learn more about, to watch me trade live as soon as tomorrow, it's the second link in the description down below, and we also have a little discount link in there for you. I appreciate your time, and like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.